Everyone thinks betrayal is loud, that it comes crashing through the door, impossible to miss. But in truth, betrayal is quiet. It arrives gently, slipping silently through unguarded spaces, carried by those we trust most deeply. My name is Liam Hartley, and I learned this truth the hard way. I spent years of my life interpreting hidden signals, uncovering secrets designed never to see daylight. I thought those shadows stayed locked in my past, distant memories from a career built in quiet vigilance. But shadows have a way of returning when you least expect them, often wrapped in a familiar smile, a warm embrace, and promises whispered softly into your ear. This is the story of how I uncovered a betrayal that tested every boundary of trust, duty, and family. It's about a choice between vengeance and integrity, between anger and clarity. But most of all, it's a story about how truth, when pursued with courage and unwavering resolve, can illuminate even the darkest corners of our lives. And how sometimes the greatest strength lies not in the noise we make, but in the quiet steps we take toward justice. The first thing you learn in the shadows is that everyone carries a secret. I learned that long before I spent my days deciphering encrypted communications in a dusty military outpost halfway across the world. But what no intelligence training ever prepared me for was the day those shadows would creep into my own home, slipping silently under doors and curling around the truths I thought unbreakable. My name is Liam Hartley. At 42, life had shaped me into a cautious man, guarded, meticulous, analytical. 12 years in signals intelligence had honed my instincts. Now, as a cybersecurity specialist protecting sensitive corporate assets, every code, every firewall, every digital signature was as familiar to me as the rhythm of my own breath. I lived a careful life, managed risks, and trusted almost no one completely except for my family. My wife, Madeline, or Maddie, as millions of her online followers knew her, was the complete opposite. Maddie's life glittered brilliantly in the bright, artificial lights of social media. With a dazzling smile and effortless charm, she taught other women to chase success, independence, and authenticity. I watched quietly from the sidelines, proud yet cautious. Success was a powerful drug, and Maddie was undeniably addicted. Ellis, our son, was the bridge between us. 17, quiet, thoughtful. He inherited Maddie's charm and my analytical mind. While Maddie documented her daily triumphs for an audience that adored her, Ellis and I communicated through codes and conversations about algorithms, cybersecurity exploits, and blockchain networks. Ellis was brilliant, perceptive far beyond his years. He understood intuitively what most adults took decades to learn. Trust was built not from promises, but from consistency. It was a clear October night when the first warning arrived. A single silent alert that blinked softly on my home office monitor. Ellis had long gone to sleep. Maddie was out hosting one of her motivational workshops downtown. The alert indicated an unusual transfer of data from our family's internal server. Unusual not because of volume, but because of timing and origin. I leaned forward, fingers hovering silently above the keyboard, eyes narrowing at the string of digits. I traced the source quickly, methodically, heart beating steadily, despite the adrenaline beginning to pulse through my veins. The access code belonged unmistakably to Maddie. I hesitated for only a second, feeling a pang of discomfort. I never spied on Maddie's activities. I respected boundaries. But instinct told me this wasn't curiosity, it was duty. The data access was deliberately masked, cloaked behind 3 layers of anonymity. Whoever accessed this intended secrecy. It took less than 5 minutes for me to pierce the layers, and suddenly I wished I hadn't. Maddie had accessed the investment accounts I'd created for Ellis, funds painstakingly built up over the years for his future, for his education. Accounts containing nearly $1.2 million. My pulse quickened. Fingers flew faster. Data streams became clear. Multiple transfers spread across crypto wallets with anonymous identifiers, deliberately obscured. In disbelief, I followed the trail deeper. Maddie had not acted alone. Traces of collaboration emerged, messages and transactions linking her directly to Trey Donovan, a high-profile crypto executive I'd briefly met at one of Maddie's charity galas. My gut churned with a sickening realization that spread like a slow poison. This wasn't an impulsive decision. It was planned, methodical, and deliberate. My screen flickered gently, casting blue shadows across the walls. I leaned back, exhaling softly, eyes fixed blankly on the ceiling, mind racing through every interaction, every subtle shift I'd previously ignored. How long had this deception brewed beneath the surface of our supposedly perfect life? How had I trained to spot even the faintest signals missed something so obvious within my own home? A soft knock at my office door startled me. Ellis stood there quietly, eyes sharp yet calm, always observant. "You saw it too," he said, voice quiet but steady, more statement than question. I nodded slowly, unsure how to speak. Ellis stepped forward, studying the screen with an intensity I recognized in myself. He reached for a chair and sat beside me, eyes tracing the data paths. "She used the secondary wallet as an intermediate," he whispered after a moment, thoughtful but pained. "Then routed it overseas. Dad, these aren't random transactions. She's washing the money." He didn't speak emotionally. He spoke analytically, accurately. I turned, searching my son's face. I saw disappointment there, deep and quiet, but not shock. Somehow, Ellis had seen the fracture long before I did. My heart sank with the heaviness of that revelation. "Do you know what that means?" I asked softly, almost afraid of the answer. Ellis nodded, eyes still fixed on the evidence before him. "She's been planning this for months, possibly longer. There's no room for error here." We sat together in silence for a long moment, father and son bound by unspoken understanding. Trust had been broken, loyalty shattered. Maddie wasn't just taking money, she was stealing Ellis's future, the security and dignity we'd promised him from the day he was born. Finally, Ellis spoke again, his voice firm, betraying no weakness. "So what now?" I looked into his eyes, calm but deeply wounded, and I knew exactly what needed to be done. I'd been trained for this, trained to operate under fire, unseen, unheard. Maddie believed she had covered her tracks perfectly, but in her arrogance, she'd underestimated us. "Now," I said quietly, with steel returning to my voice, "we wait, we document, and when the moment is right, we strike back. But until then," Ellis finished the thought for me, "we act as if nothing has changed." I nodded once, a silent agreement. My son's resilience humbled me. His composure steadied my resolve. From that moment, everything between Maddie and us would be a quiet, careful performance. While beneath the surface, another story began unfolding, silent, dangerous, and methodically precise. That night, as Ellis returned to his room, I remained alone in the glow of my monitor, piecing together what would soon become a dossier I quietly labeled Operation Mirror. As dawn crept slowly across the horizon, a new certainty formed in my heart. The deepest betrayals were always committed in silence, but justice, true justice, would not remain quiet for long. The first morning after uncovering Maddie's betrayal felt surreal. The early sunlight slipped through the kitchen window, warming the counter where Maddie stood effortlessly preparing breakfast, as if nothing had changed. She was radiant as ever, flashing that smile millions loved, filming quick stories for her followers about starting the day with positivity. Every cheerful word, every carefully curated gesture suddenly felt hollow to me, a stark reminder of how easily truth could be manipulated. Ellis sat across from me, eyes carefully neutral, studying his plate. Maddie's voice danced brightly between us, filling the silence neither Ellis nor I could break. My hands tightened imperceptibly around my coffee mug, holding back questions that burned hot inside my chest. "Liam," Maddie's voice cut gently through my thoughts. "Did you hear what I said?" I lifted my eyes slowly, meeting hers across the table. "Sorry," I said evenly, forcing calm into my voice. "Long night. What was it again?" "I said I'll be out tonight for a client meeting. It might run late. Trey's hosting an event at the Ritz Potential Investors," she explained smoothly, eyes steady on mine. Her lie was flawless, practiced. For a heartbeat, I wondered how many mornings had been just like this one, layered with quiet deception. "No problem," I replied, sipping coffee slowly to mask my bitterness. "Ellis and I have plans anyway." "Oh?" Her tone was casual, but I caught the flicker of curiosity behind her eyes. "Father-son bonding? Something like that." Ellis responded softly, voice calm and detached, never betraying his own turmoil. After Maddie left, the tension eased, but the weight of unspoken truth remained. Ellis quietly cleared the table as I sank into my thoughts. I replayed Maddie's words, the effortless lies, the casual mention of Trey, and the pretense of investor meetings. Every interaction now felt like a carefully constructed move on a chessboard. Maddie had made her opening play. It was our turn to respond. "What's the next move?" Ellis finally asked, interrupting my brooding silence. He leaned against the counter, arms crossed, steady gaze trained on me. It was impossible not to see myself in his thoughtful, controlled posture. His calm steadied my racing thoughts. "I'm meeting Lori," I said carefully, watching his reaction. "She used to handle Trey's finances before he fired her. She knows where the bodies are buried." "You think she'll help?" Ellis's tone was analytical, careful. "What's in it for her? Justice? Closure? Revenge, maybe?" I replied honestly. "Trey discarded her when she became inconvenient. People remember betrayal, Ellis. Sometimes loyalty is earned by those who simply don't betray." He nodded slowly, absorbing the lesson beneath my words. "Then I'll start digging deeper into Trey's blockchain," Ellis said firmly. "We need irrefutable proof linking him to Mom. Every transfer, every wallet, I'll find them." A quiet pride swelled in my chest, mixed with sadness at what we had both lost overnight. My son shouldn't have had to bear this burden, but life rarely asked permission before testing us. "Ellis," I began softly, "we're going up against powerful people. If things get messy—" "I know," he interrupted gently, eyes darkening with quiet determination. "But if we do nothing, she'll rewrite the narrative. You taught me better than that." "Taught me?" Later that day, I sat across from Lori at a discreet downtown cafe, far from Maddie's glittering social circles. Lori was younger than I expected, dressed plainly, wary eyes carrying shadows of past battles. She listened silently as I laid out the basics, careful not to reveal too much at first. "I wondered how long it would take for someone to figure out Trey," she finally spoke, bitterness lacing her voice. "He's brilliant at deception, manipulation, covering tracks. The cryptocurrency angle was genius. Easy to hide, easier to move. But what I didn't count on was Maddie. I knew he was ruthless, but she seemed genuinely good. People see what they want to, I said quietly. But data doesn't lie. That's why I need your help. Lori looked away for a moment, chewing her lip thoughtfully. When her gaze returned, it held quiet resolve. There's a digital trail, she finally admitted. Trey buried it, but it's there. Offshore wallets, false documents, hidden ledgers. Everything to prove their complicity. But accessing it, leave that to me, I interrupted gently. Just tell me where to look. I have someone on the inside, someone Trey would never suspect. Her eyes narrowed thoughtfully. You? No, I said, allowing myself a brief smile. My son. She looked surprised, then impressed, nodding slowly. I'll give you everything I have. But Liam, know this. Once you start, there's no going back. Maddie won't hesitate to bury you to save herself. She already has a narrative planned, a backup story, something about emotional abuse, digital stalking. She told Trey she needed a contingency. My pulse quickened at this new revelation. The betrayal ran deeper than I imagined. Maddie wasn't simply protecting herself. She intended to destroy me, leaving nothing behind but ruins and whispers. Then we need absolute proof, I said firmly, something impossible to refute. You'll have it, Lori assured, determination flashing through her exhaustion. Trey's arrogance will be his downfall, and Maddie's desperation will expose her, I promise. Leaving the caf, I felt strangely lighter, even as the threat loomed larger. Our path was clearer now, defined by duty, justice, and painful necessity. I knew the risks. Maddie's reach, Trey's ruthlessness, the fragile balance of truth against carefully crafted lies. But I had trained a lifetime for moments like this. Shadow wars fought with data, determination, and quiet precision. That night, as Maddie's carefully curated stories filled her followers' screens, glamorous, confident, flawless. I stood alone in the dim light of my study, organizing the first files of Operation Mirror. Ellis stepped quietly into the doorway, watching me in silence. You okay? I asked, turning slightly toward him. He nodded once, resolute. It's strange, isn't it? He said quietly. We spend our lives guarding against threats, never realizing the greatest danger comes from the people closest to us. It happens more often than you think, I replied, my voice low with regret and understanding. But this isn't just about revenge or winning. It's about protecting what matters, truth, integrity, dignity. Sometimes, that's all we have left. Ellis didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was firm, carrying a strength far beyond his 17 years. Then let's make sure they never take that from us again. We stood in silence, bonded by loss, betrayal, but also by purpose. Maddie had chosen her path, paved by deception and greed. Ours was different, quieter, but infinitely more powerful. Because in the end, truth, when wielded carefully, deliberately, was the most devastating weapon of all. Secrets are rarely contained for long. Eventually, they find their way out, seeping through cracks and holes we never thought existed. In the quiet tension of those days following my discovery, every exchange with Maddie felt like a carefully choreographed dance one wrong step, and the illusion we both maintained would shatter. It was late afternoon when Ellis tapped lightly on my office door. He entered quietly, laptop tucked under his arm, his expression controlled, a careful mask hiding deeper emotions. His eyes told a different story, shadows and confusion behind that careful composure. I found something you need to hear, Dad, he murmured quietly. I accessed one of Trey's encrypted comm channels. He and Mom, they spoke yesterday. About? My question was brief, tightly controlled. My pulse accelerated. Each revelation felt like another sharp blade piercing an already open wound. Ellis silently set the laptop on the desk between us, fingers steady, clicking to open a secured audio file. He hesitated briefly, as though deciding how much pain he could bear inflicting upon us both, before finally pressing play. Maddie's voice filled the silence, clear yet unfamiliar in its hardness. We have to make sure Liam can't retaliate. He'll figure it out, he always does. We need something foolproof, Trey. I have people who can help, Trey replied, his tone calm, calculating. Digital evidence of harassment, emotional abuse, control. Trust me, the world loves a good victim narrative. You have the followers use them. Maddie's laughter rang out coldly, a sound I'd never imagined coming from the woman I'd once believed I knew better than myself. I built my entire career on inspiring trust. By the time I'm done, Liam will have no reputation left to protect. My followers will destroy him. I felt a tightening in my chest, an ache deeper than betrayal. Maddie wasn't just planning to escape unscathed. She intended to annihilate my name, weaponizing the very trust and influence she'd spent years cultivating. Ellis paused the recording, eyes downcast, hiding the pain etched in his features. I'm sorry you had to hear this, Dad. No, I murmured softly, fighting back anger, hurt, disbelief. Never apologize for showing me the truth. Ellis hesitated, thoughtful, then quietly asked, Do you think she was always like this? Or did success change her? His question cut deeper than I expected. I searched my memories carefully of Maddie's early warmth, generosity, the genuine laughter we once shared. Had success corrupted her, or had I simply refused to see the shadows beneath her brilliant facade? I think, I finally admitted, honesty painful but necessary. Sometimes we fall so deeply in love with our perception of someone that we fail to see who they really are. Ellis nodded, quiet understanding passing between us. What do we do next? We let Maddie think she's winning, I replied evenly, decision firm in my voice. Let her continue this game. In the meantime, we document every move. Lori's evidence, your findings, this conversation, everything. We build a clear, irrefutable record of what's actually happening. You're talking about turning her followers against her, Ellis said thoughtfully, eyes sharp with realization. No, I corrected quietly. I'm talking about presenting an undeniable truth. Maddie can manipulate feelings and opinions, but facts are harder to twist. Then let's be thorough, Ellis said calmly. No mistakes. That evening, after Maddie left for her staged client event, I sat alone in our dimly lit living room, replaying the recorded conversation. Each word intensified the quiet resolve building inside me, sharpening my focus, my sense of purpose. The phone beside me buzzed softly, a private, encrypted message from Lori. I've forwarded documents and financial trails. There's more here than you thought. Offshore accounts, false identities. Tread carefully. I responded briefly, grateful for her bravery, knowing the risks she took. Thank you. Be careful, too. Later that night, in the stillness of my home office, Ellis and I laid out the intricate digital trail on the screen before us, wallet transfers, offshore connections, encrypted messages, all pointing directly to Maddie and Trey. Maddie's meticulous effort to conceal her betrayal ironically created a perfect roadmap, guiding us exactly to the evidence we needed. Ellis leaned back, eyes tired but alert, thoughtful silence heavy between us. She must have known you'd eventually discover the theft. That's why she created the abuse narrative, to make sure no one believed you. I nodded solemnly. Exactly. If people see me as controlling, manipulative, then my truth loses credibility. Maddie controls the narrative, and suddenly everything we have becomes meaningless. My son's eyes darkened slightly. Do you think people will really turn on you that quickly? After all you've done? I sighed, feeling years of experience weigh heavily upon me. It takes a lifetime to build a reputation, Ellis, and seconds to destroy one. Maddie knows this, and she's counting on it. For a long moment, Ellis stared at the screen in silence, processing the weight of our discoveries. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a quiet, fierce determination. She doesn't deserve to win, not this time. We'll make sure people see the truth, not revenge justice. I studied my son carefully, his strength, resolve, and integrity. Seeing clearly, for the first time, that perhaps this tragedy held a hidden gift. Ellis was no longer simply a boy I guided and protected. He had become my ally, my equal, bound together not merely by blood, but by purpose, trust, and shared determination. You're right, I finally replied, conviction filling my voice. This isn't just about stopping Maddie. It's about protecting truth, integrity, and the values that make our lives worth something. That night, as Maddie slipped silently back into our home, smiling sweetly, as though no secret lay heavy between us, I forced a quiet, patient calm into my demeanor, meeting her false warmth with carefully controlled neutrality. Inside, though, a quiet strength grew, a patient, powerful conviction. Maddie thought she was ahead, believed her carefully staged lies would shield her. But I had learned long ago in shadowed deserts halfway across the world, the most dangerous weapon wasn't power or money. It was truth itself. And when wielded by someone who had nothing left to lose, someone calm, patient, and absolutely determined, truth would inevitably dismantle even the most skillfully crafted illusions. Maddie's plan had been to destroy my credibility, to erase me from our shared story. But stories were fragile things, easily rewritten. And this time, I would be the one holding the pen. The days that followed our discovery became an exercise in patience and careful, silent precision. Maintaining normalcy was challenging, but essential. Maddie continued her performance flawlessly, graceful smiles, gentle touches, carefree laughter captured effortlessly for social media. Each fabricated moment, each carefully curated story posted online was another layer of deception. But Ellis and I had silently begun building our own powerful counter-narrative. In my years spent deciphering codes and tracking signals through labyrinthine networks, I had learned that silence wasn't merely the absence of sound, it was a strategic weapon. Maddie thrived on drama, publicity, emotional displays. Denying her these responses, forcing her to confront my quiet neutrality, was subtly unsettling her, weakening the certainty she clung to. Ellis, too, was mastering this new role with quiet maturity, displaying a strength that often took my breath away. His youthful innocence had given way to a focused determination, and together we laid the foundation for what would soon become a meticulous counteroffensive. One evening, as Maddie left for yet another late-night business event, Ellis and I sat in the soft glow of my home office. Data streamed quietly across our screens: numbers, identities, offshore transfers, encrypted communications. Lori's intel had provided a goldmine of hidden trails, secret transactions, carefully obscured links Maddie and Trey had meticulously tried to erase. "The blockchain never forgets," Ellis murmured quietly, eyes narrowing with concentration. He highlighted a series of digital transactions. "Here, this wallet was created by Trey months ago. Multiple transfers, hidden through different currencies. He was smart, really smart, but careless." I studied the screen, fingers tracing pathways Ellis uncovered. "You're right," I replied slowly, analytical instincts firing sharply. "He didn't just transfer once. This is repeated movement, creating multiple layers to obscure origin." "Exactly," Ellis confirmed, his voice steady. "But there's always a trace, a digital fingerprint they didn't expect we'd notice." I glanced at my son, pride swelling quietly within me. The irony is, their complexity is exactly what will unravel them. Ellis nodded, his composure a mirror of my own. "So what's the end game?" "The end game," I replied, my voice firm with quiet confidence, "is giving Maddie and Trey enough rope to hang themselves. They expect confrontation, anger, emotional responses. We deny them all that. Instead, we simply watch, gather, record. The moment they commit fully to their plan, we release the truth in a way they can't possibly deny or spin." Days passed with practiced normalcy. Maddie, oblivious to our silent preparations, moved forward aggressively with her deception. Her social media presence became subtly sharper, the victim narrative carefully woven into each new post, positioning herself as resilient, surviving an oppressive relationship. Her follower count surged, sympathy poured in daily, bolstering her confidence. Meanwhile, we operated quietly, assembling a dossier unlike anything I'd compiled before. Lori's contributions grew increasingly detailed, delivering documented proof of Maddie's complicity, her active role in financial deceit, and calculated planning. Every night, after Maddie slept, Ellis and I carefully mapped out the digital evidence transactions, timelines, recordings, building an airtight case that no lawyer could contest, no public opinion could deny. But beneath our strategic quietness, tension mounted. Each day of silent vigilance exacted an emotional toll. Maddie's facade was eerily perfect, her deception masterful. It took every ounce of control to appear unaffected, indifferent, detached. Yet beneath the surface, anger simmered softly, balanced by sorrow and an aching disbelief. One night, after another meticulously staged evening where Maddie dazzled her followers with manufactured sincerity, she slipped into our room. She leaned against the doorway, eyes observing me carefully, searching my quiet demeanor for weakness or suspicion. "You've been quiet lately, Liam," she said softly, voice dripping false concern. "Is everything all right?" I looked up slowly, meeting her gaze evenly, a practiced neutrality settling over me. "Just busy. Work's been demanding." She hesitated briefly, testing my expression, waiting for the emotional vulnerability I refused to reveal. "You know you can always talk to me, right?" Her words, carefully chosen and utterly hollow, struck an invisible nerve. But I kept my voice level, controlled. "I appreciate that, Maddie," I responded calmly. "But everything's fine." As she turned away, a slight shadow of uncertainty flickered across her face. Brief, quickly masked, but unmistakable. Our careful silence had begun quietly unsettling her, a subtle fracture in her confidence forming beneath the surface. In the days following, I watched Maddie's online persona evolve even more aggressively, driven by a desperation she'd never anticipated. Her stories became bolder, carefully hinting at darker, manipulative scenarios at home, suggesting emotional distress carefully crafted to prepare her followers for the explosive accusation she soon intended to launch against me. Yet, beneath her growing bravado, she made subtle mistakes, small oversights we carefully documented. Ellis captured every slip meticulously, each inconsistency carefully logged, time-stamped, cross-referenced. Maddie and Trey's arrogance and desperation had begun quietly unraveling them, thread by thread. Then, late one evening, another encrypted alert appeared. Ellis's voice was quiet, urgent, the moment he entered my office. "Dad, she's moving again." Another withdrawal from Ellis's fund, larger this time, routed through 2 different wallets. We analyzed quickly. Maddie, confident in her obscurity, had just committed her largest mistake yet, a transaction directly connected to Trey's personal offshore account. The error was subtle but irrefutable, a digital fingerprint no narrative could obscure, a final piece we needed. Ellis looked at me quietly, eyes calm yet fiercely resolute. "I think this is it, Dad." She crossed the line. I nodded slowly, certainty settling deep in my chest. "Then let's finalize everything. Secure every detail. This evidence needs to stand clear, undeniable." Together we worked silently into the early morning hours, finalizing every document, every piece of evidence. When we finished, dawn was breaking softly over the horizon, casting quiet golden hues into the room. Ellis leaned back, exhaling deeply, eyes sharp with clarity. "Are you ready for what's coming?" he asked quietly. I turned to him, feeling a deep sense of calm within me. "I've spent years protecting others from threats they never saw coming," I replied evenly. "This time, I'm protecting something far more important. The truth, our dignity, our future." Ellis nodded silently, understanding passing quietly between us. "Then let's make sure Maddie finally faces the consequences." We exchanged a long look of shared determination. Maddie had carefully constructed her narrative, confident in her manipulation. But what she never anticipated was our patience, our meticulous precision, and the quiet strength truth offered when wielded without hesitation. We'd fought our battles silently, never once revealing our hand. But that quiet time had ended. Maddie had drawn her line. Now, silently, carefully, we were preparing our own response, powerful, undeniable, and absolutely devastating. The shadows Maddie had counted on to hide her sins were now the very tool we wielded to illuminate her deceit. And soon, very soon, the truth would no longer remain quiet. With Maddie's carefully constructed lies rapidly spreading online, I knew our response had to be swift, precise, and unmistakable. Ellis and I chose the simplest yet most powerful path, letting undeniable facts speak for themselves. That afternoon, I uploaded a detailed response, a calm, clear video paired with meticulously organized documentation. With quiet confidence, I presented timestamps, location data, financial records, and digital forensics that dismantled Maddie's claims piece by piece. No accusations, no anger, just cold, irrefutable evidence. Within hours, public opinion swung dramatically. People who'd quickly condemned me now expressed shock and remorse. Maddie's social media was suddenly flooded with questions, doubts, demands for explanations. Her carefully crafted victim narrative crumbled under scrutiny. Ellis monitored reactions closely, his composure impressive despite the emotional toll. "They're panicking," he reported quietly, eyes locked on his screen. "Mom's gone offline. Trey's deleting posts and moving assets. They didn't expect this response." A new alert appeared on Ellis's screen. Maddie and Trey desperately messaging each other, blaming each other for their exposure. The unraveling was swift, chaotic, exactly as anticipated. "I thought I knew her," Ellis admitted softly, sadness briefly coloring his voice. "But she never thought about us at all." I placed a gentle hand on his shoulder, speaking quietly yet firmly. "Sometimes betrayal reveals who we truly are, Ellis. It's not about who hurt us, but how we respond. Remember that." Ellis nodded solemnly, eyes firm with quiet determination. "Then we're responding exactly as we should." By evening, Maddie's narrative had collapsed entirely. Her followers felt betrayed, outraged, turning fiercely against her. Brands dropped her contracts rapidly, distancing themselves from the fallout. Trey vanished from public view, clearly attempting damage control, but it was too late. Authorities had already begun investigating his crypto operations, thanks to our carefully prepared dossier, quietly handed over to regulatory agencies. Watching this swift reversal filled me with quiet, measured satisfaction. Not from revenge, but from knowing justice had finally emerged clearly from chaos. With Maddie's narrative crumbling publicly, it wasn't long before federal investigators stepped decisively into the chaos. Within days, the SEC officially announced its investigation into Trey Donovan's cryptocurrency operations, explicitly mentioning irregularities and signs of large-scale financial fraud. The announcement sent ripples across the internet, rapidly intensifying Maddie and Trey's downward spiral. From our quiet vantage point, Ellis and I observed carefully, providing authorities precise, irrefutable documentation through secure channels. Ellis's sharp analytical mind proved invaluable, tracking every subtle digital trace they'd left behind. Operation Mirror seamlessly evolved into Operation Broken Chain, an official SEC probe supported directly by our carefully prepared evidence. Under mounting legal pressure, Trey disappeared completely, scrambling desperately to avoid prosecution. Maddie, left exposed and abandoned, faced waves of relentless media scrutiny, her polished public persona shattered beyond repair. Each attempt at explanation made things worse, contradictions fueling further suspicion. One night, Ellis quietly approached me, showing me Maddie's latest panicked messages online. Disjointed pleas claiming innocence and victimhood. His voice was calm but tinged with sadness. It's strange seeing her like this. It's like she never understood consequences. I nodded slowly. Sometimes success blinds people, makes them feel invincible. But consequences always catch up, Ellis. That's the lesson here. Ellis met my gaze with quiet understanding, and now she has nowhere left to hide. Authorities quickly froze Maddie's accounts and seized substantial assets. Brands cut ties entirely, her digital empire collapsing dramatically within days. Her carefully crafted lies finally unraveled completely under the harsh glare of public and legal scrutiny. From our perspective, justice had finally begun asserting itself clearly. It wasn't about vengeance. It was about integrity, truth, and protecting others from exploitation. The collapse of Maddie's reputation was swift and total. Within days, every brand endorsement vanished, partnerships dissolved overnight, and her carefully cultivated audience turned against her. Her digital empire burned fiercely, fueled by anger, disappointment, and betrayal from millions who once admired her. Trey Donovan fled the country, slipping quietly across borders, desperately evading federal charges. Yet, even his escape couldn't shield him from permanent disgrace. Maddie remained alone, her public apologies ignored, her attempts to regain sympathy swiftly rejected. Ellis and I watched quietly, feeling no joy, only solemn relief. Maddie's downfall was painful. Not because we felt sorry for her, but because it underscored how quickly integrity could dissolve when confronted by greed and deceit. Ellis reflected quietly one evening as we watched news coverage showing Maddie exiting a courthouse, surrounded by reporters she could no longer charm. "I didn't expect it to end like this," he murmured. "It hasn't fully ended yet," I replied softly. "There's still healing ahead for us, and for everyone affected by her choices." He nodded, his gaze thoughtful. "At least the truth finally matters." "Truth always matters," I agreed. "Sometimes it just takes longer for people to see it." Maddie's online presence soon disappeared entirely, her silence deafening proof of her defeat. But even as the fires burned out, I knew this wasn't truly over. We still had work ahead, not revenge, but rebuilding and safeguarding others from similar harm. The courtroom was quiet yet charged, filled with observers eager to witness the final unraveling of Maddie's carefully constructed facade. Sitting across from me, she looked diminished, devoid of the charisma she once effortlessly wielded. Her confidence had faded, replaced by resignation and a silent, simmering anger. When it was my turn to present evidence, I stood calmly, handing the judge detailed records and digital logs, proof beyond doubt of Maddie's deception, manipulation, and financial misconduct. Every fact was irrefutable, every detail precise, leaving no room for ambiguity. Maddie's lawyer attempted weak defenses, quickly dismantled by concrete data. Ellis sat quietly behind me, composed yet visibly pained by seeing his mother publicly exposed. My heart ached for him, but this was necessary, a harsh, essential lesson in truth and consequences. The judge's ruling was swift and clear. Maddie lost custody rights, all remaining assets frozen pending restitution, and she was officially prohibited from involvement in finance or media-related fields for the next decade. As we left the courthouse, Maddie's eyes briefly met mine. No words spoken, but understanding passed silently between us. She had written her own ending through choices she alone controlled. 2 years passed quietly, bringing healing and clarity. Ellis and I channeled our experiences into something powerful: the founding of Shadow Signal, a nonprofit dedicated to safeguarding inheritances and trusts from exploitation, especially by those closest to home. One afternoon, at a community conference in a modest but packed auditorium, I stood on stage answering questions. A young journalist rose, his voice clear but curious. "Mr. Hartley, with everything you and your son endured, why didn't you push for criminal charges against your ex-wife?" The room fell silent, anticipation thickening the air. Ellis, now 19, watched me quietly from the front row. I met his eyes briefly, steady, calm, supportive. "Because justice isn't about punishment alone," I began gently. "Maddie's choices condemned her more deeply than any courtroom could. Every action carries its own inherent consequences. By pursuing vengeance, we risk becoming like those who wronged us. True strength is choosing integrity over anger, accountability over revenge." A murmur of appreciation rippled through the audience. I continued, voice steady but earnest. "The truth always finds its way into the light. Our role isn't to punish others, but to protect, educate, and prevent future harm. That's the legacy we chose to build." Later, Ellis and I walked quietly from the venue, evening sunlight warm on our faces. He broke the comfortable silence gently. "Do you think Mom ever regrets what she did?" he asked softly. I considered his question carefully. "I believe regret comes eventually, Ellis, but by then, it's usually too late to repair the damage done." We learned Maddie had settled anonymously in a small, rural town, working quietly in a modest office role, a stranger to everyone around her. Her past forgotten, her fame evaporated entirely. Our own lives felt simpler, richer now, built upon honesty, trust, and quiet purpose. We'd reclaimed far more than stolen assets. We restored our integrity and dignity, choosing compassion over bitterness. As we reached our car, Ellis paused thoughtfully. "It feels good, doesn't it? Knowing we can protect others from going through what we did." "It does," I agreed, feeling a quiet pride for the man my son had become. It means our journey, however painful, had purpose. In that peaceful moment, I realized the shadows we'd endured were behind us now, replaced by quiet strength, lasting resilience, and a deep understanding of what truly matters: trust, integrity, and the courage to face even the hardest truths.